In this video, we're going to take a look at the gap tool. And the gap tool is basically the fourth tool down in the toolbox. All right. And if you notice, if you just do a mouse over anywhere on your document, you're going to notice it's going to find a gap, whether it's a gap that's between the object and the edge of the page, or if it's a gap between the actual objects themselves. And that could be a vertical or it could be a horizontal. It doesn't make a difference. It's going to find a gap. All right. Okay. So let's talk about how that works. First of all, let's click on the gap tool and move it and let's see what it does. So right now I put this gap tool, if you notice it found the gap between this entire column right here. So I'm going to click, and when I drag, you notice that it keeps the width of the gap, but it actually changes and it alters the size of the object. All right. Now I can even do that, horizontally. Again, the exact same thing. It's going to see the whole row, if you will, and it will keep the width of the gap, and it's just going to adjust it vertically, being up and down. Okay. So now let's see what happens when we actually implement some of the modifier keys. If we put our finger on the Command key and we start to move it, notice it opens and closes the gap. It opens and closes the gap. So that's what happens when we put our finger on the Command key. When we put our finger on the Option key, what it does is it actually moves the objects that the gap is attached to. All right? So that's what happens when we put our finger on the Option key. When we put our finger on the Shift key, it just looks at the gap between the two objects, not the entire row. So as you can see, it's modifying the gap only in that row alone. Okay? And then when we put our finger on the Shift option, all right, what it's going to do is it's going to open and close just between the two objects. All right? That's Shift, Option, Command, and click. All right? So basically, that's how the gap tool works. All right, it's very instrumental when you're actually working with grids and you want to do something pretty, different, a little different. But play with it and see if you can find creative ways to work with your designs using the gap tool. In this video, we're going to add captions to our images. All right, so I did a few things to speed up the process. So first thing I want to do is I want to put the images on this page. All right, so I have a folder where I have my concept cars. So I'm going to do a Command D, which is place. All right, and here are all my concept cars. I'm going to highlight all of them. I'll say open, and remember we have 4 images that are embedded into the pointer, and it's something that I call a loaded gun. You put your finger on the Shift and the Command key or the Shift and the Control key if you're on the PC. You'll get that little grid. So what you can do now is I'm going to click and drag from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner. You're going to see I have 4 frames right here. All right. Once I do that, I take my finger off the mouse and the images pop into place. And now I can take my fingers off the 2 modifier keys, being the Shift and Command or the Shift and Control. Now, while all 4 of these images are still selected, all right, I'm going to go up to Object, I'm going to drop down to Fitting, and I'll say Fill Frame Proportionally, so that these images actually fill up the images, they actually fill up the frames, so that if we look at them, all right, you can see, I just hit the Command W, so you can see they all fit the frames comfortably. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my captions. Well, it just so happens that this is a 2-step process because you have to do something in Photoshop first before you can actually add the captions in. And basically what that is you've got to put the information that InDesign is going to grab from Photoshop to put in the captions for these images. And it is, yes, it's called metadata. So what we're going to do right now is if you haven't launched it, you're going to launch Photoshop, open up Photoshop, and then we're going to open up those 4 images and we're going to get that information in there. So I'm going to do Command O or Control O, which is open. I'm going to locate all 4 of those images. I'm going to open them at once. So now I'm looking at all 4 images in front of me. All right, now the next thing is I have a Word document that I made that has the names of these images, or the name of these cars actually. All right, so the first one is going to be the Honda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select what says Honda Concept Car. All right, I have that selected. Okay. I'm going to copy that information. I'm going to come here to Photoshop. While I'm here, I'm going to use, and again, this is, I have these committed to memory, Shift, Option, Command, and the letter I. That's the info. That's where you can find your metadata. The very first listing is basic. The document title, we're going to paste that in. We're going to save that, okay, and then we're going to close this document. All right, we're going to save it. All right, and then we're going to go to the next one. All right, and this one is it's the Ford GT90. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that Word document that I have. All right, and it's right behind here. Let me pull this down. There's the Word document right there. All right, it's a Ford GT90. So I'm going to grab that, highlight that, copy it. All right, come back to my Photoshop document. Shift, Option, Command, and the letter I. All right, we come back here to the title. We paste that information in. We'll say OK. All right, we're going to close it down and save all the information, and it goes away. Next up is going to be our, let's see, this is the Citroen. So I come here, there it is right there at the top. Okay, you guys get the picture. We're going to copy that. All right, come back to the image. Shift, Option, Command, the letter I, document title, paste that in. We'll say OK, save it and close it down. All right, and then lastly, we have the Mazda Fiore. Okay, and I hope I pronounced it properly. I'll go here, highlight that, copy it. All right, come back to InDesign, Shift, Option, Command, the letter I, paste that in place right there. We'll say OK. So now we have that information in our metadata. Close that down. We're going to save it. All right, close it down. All right, and then now let's see what happens when we're in InDesign. Okay, so I'm going to move this to the side. I come back to my InDesign document, and as you can notice, all four of these images now have these little yellow diamonds there. That means they have been up. That means that there's something different. Something happened to them, and we know what that is. We added the captions, or we added the metadata. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our links. We're going to highlight, select all of them. So you can do click on one, shift, and click on all of them. And then this little circular arrow right here, click on that so you update them all, and now they're current. So we get this, we're going to hide this. All right, so let's put in our captions. First thing I want to do is I'm going to, in the selection tool, I'm going to highlight all four frames with their images. I'm going to go up to objects. I'm going to drop down to where it says captions. First thing, caption setup. All right, so now we want to put in title. All right, that's what we want, because that's if you notice here, you have a whole bunch of options. We want title. Make sure you have title selected. All right, and then as far as the style is concerned, I created a style. It's called Captions. We'll use that style. The setting, we have it offset at 1 pica. In other words, what that means is instead of going 1 pica beneath, it's going to go 1 pica above. And you'll see what that looks like. Even though it's at the bottom, instead of going underneath the frame, it's going to go up, so it's going to be actually in the frame. So we're going to say OK. That's the option that we want. Next up, we're going to drop down to Objects, go down to Captions. All right, and we're going to say Generate Live Captions. And as you can see, bing, there's our captions. All right, and as you can see, the frames, they didn't go below, they went up because there was a negative value. Okay, so now, and if we preview it, you can see there's the information sitting comfortably within the frames. So why did we choose live? Well, the reason why we choose live, when we went to Object, the option that we used was Generate Live Caption. Let me highlight this together. Let me bring this back so that we're out of the preview mode. Do a Command A, select all the frames, and then you'll notice that Captions, there's a live caption option that we chose. And the reason why we did that is because when you update the metadata in Photoshop, guess what? It's going to update in your InDesign document. Let's give it a test run and see what happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Honda image. All right, I'm going to go into the metadata, which was Shift, Option, Command, and letter I, which you already know. Highlight concept car and delete it. I'll say OK. I will save this, and then I will close this. All right, And now, look, there it is. It has been updated automatically in InDesign. So that's how we work with our captions in InDesign. In this video, we're going to talk about the Pathfinder. All right. Now, for those of you guys who have some Illustrator experience, you'll know about this. But as you can see right now, I have two objects on my page. One, of course, is a magenta frame, and the other one is a cyan circle. So let's go up to Windows, drop down to, and of course, you're in InDesign. Go to Windows. Drop down to Objects and Layout, slide over to where it says Pathfinder, and you'll get this dialog box right here. So the Pathfinder, very quickly, I mean, it does exactly what it says it's supposed to do. You need two or more objects in order to make the Pathfinder to work. For example, if I just clicked on one and selected these images, these icons, nothing is going to happen. All right. However, if I select both of these images, you're going to see that as I tap on these icons, things will happen. For example, the first one, we'll combine them. All right, the second one will actually subtract. The third will give you the difference. The fourth one will create what they call a whole, and then this one will subtract the other version. This one subtracted the one in front, and then this one subtracted the one behind. So this is basically what your Pathfinder will do. Now, let's say, for example, if I selected them both and I clicked on the first one. As you notice, when I combined it, both of these objects turn blue. Well, that's because it's going to pick up the color of the image that's number one in the stacking order. So let's say, for example, if I were to bring the magenta frame to the top and then I combine them, then you'll see it will pick up the color of the object that's on top. All right. So, but one thing that's pretty cool is that if I duplicate this, in other words, if I go up to Edit, Step, and Repeat, all right, and basically I duplicate this thing in place. So I'll say, give me one copy. The offset is 0. The offset is 0. So in other words, when I duplicate it, let me move this to the side so you can see, there are two of them. All right, so what I can do now is I can take this one frame right here, the top frame right here, I can say subtract, and now what I can do is, I can create kind of like an effect where, it looks like it's actually eating into, I have this little path right here, this little gap right here, if you will, so that it has like a little custom gap that I made with subtracting this and then just moving this away. All right, so anyway, that's just long and short, a very quick tutorial about the Pathfinder. Play with it, see what you come up with, but, it's pretty cool.